AP historians. This is Wendy with AP History Help, and this is the AP History Help podcast, where you will learn everything you need to know about taking AP history classes, from skills to content, from historical thinking skills to themes in history. Whether you are taking or thinking about taking AP World History, AP US History, or AP European History, this podcast is for you. Be sure to check out the episode list and show notes to find the topics that you need help with. Engage with me at AP History Help on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube with questions that I might answer on future episodes. In this episode, we are covering a very specific topic, one that only applies to 2 points on the DBQ Essay rubric, which amounts to about 7% of the AP History exam. I don't know, 7% is worthy of an entire episode. And truth be told, it's the difference between 1 evidence point and 2. And if you understand that difference, it makes writing the DBQ essay a whole lot easier. But before we get too far along, if you haven't already done so, make sure that you listen to my last episode, which goes over how to get the point for writing a perfect thesis on the DBQ and the LEQ. I guess that is also the equivalent of 2 points on your FRQs. Anyway, the thesis is not just an introductory statement. There are very specific things you need to do with it to get that point. And if you don't do it right, it can mess up your whole essay. If you didn't listen, you can just go to your podcast player, my website, aphistoryhelp.com, or even to YouTube and look for episode 13 of AP History Help. That's right. They're all on demand for your listening pleasure or watching pleasure if you're on YouTube. Okay, so by now you're probably sick of documents. You know the saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger? Yeah, that applies here. But documents are not going to kill you, and the more you work with them, the stronger you're going to get at reading them for a purpose, summarizing them, and then analyzing them. Well, our next episode will delve into that analysis piece. Today is the deep dive into how to read those documents for meaning and use them to support your thesis, which includes your argument. First, I'll discuss strategies, and then we'll end with some course-specific examples. In AP History class, you read documents for a lot of different purposes. To be clear, we are specifically talking about reading them to use as evidence when writing your document-based question essay. Before you read a single document in the DBQ, which by the way, there are 7, you should know 100% exactly what the prompt is asking you. If you misinterpret what the prompt is asking, you could end up using the documents to support the wrong argument. And if you do that, you can actually still get one of the 2 document points because the new rubric gives you 1 point for correctly describing the content of 3 documents. So yeah, if you can read 3 documents and summarize what they are saying, you're guaranteed a point. So, for example, if the document was the preamble to the Constitution, which says, "We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, and ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America." Why, yes, the Schoolhouse Rock song was just playing in my head. Anyway, you could say, the people who wrote the Constitution stated their goals for the United States as they formed a new country, which included things like promoting the general welfare and ensuring freedom for all. Well, then you are on your way to earning the point for describing 3 documents, providing you followed suit with 2 more. By the way, if they ask for 3 documents, give them 4. There is always a chance that you are going to incorrectly interpret a document. If you did it for only 3, now you won't get that point. But if you do it for 4 documents, it's a little bit of an insurance policy there. But yeah, you guys have been asked to summarize since elementary school. This should be easy peasy. Did you know that the Student Success Journal that I have created for you is now available? You would have already known that even before I mentioned it in the last episode if you followed me on TikTok. TikTok followers saw it first in the form of an unboxing or enveloping video. It is set up to be a user-friendly weekly companion on your journey to acing the AP exam. It is set up to help you focus on the important content that you are learning, the thinking skills that are covered, and most importantly, the opportunity to reflect on the overall process of learning and developing the skills you will need to ace the exam. There are many other little tips and tricks scattered throughout. I will put a link to purchase the Student Success Planner in the show notes, but you can also access it through the aphistoryhelp.com website or head on over to Amazon and search on Success Planner for History Students AP, and it should be at the top of the search results. Now, here comes the second half of the evidence point. The part that says the response must use the content of 4 of the documents to support an argument in response to the prompt. Basically, for at least 4 documents, you're going to use those to prove or support what you said you were going to argue about in your thesis. What's that? Don't know how to write a thesis that establishes an argument? Go back to episode 13 and then come back to this point, right? So in your thesis, you said, here is my argument. Now it's time to put your money where your mouth is. You can't just say your team is the best team without data to support your claim. Even if your team hasn't won a single game, if you can back up your argument with individual performance stats, how close each loss actually was, the injury report, and perhaps the opinions of experts in the sport, well, then you can make that argument. Let me repeat. As long as you have the evidence to defend your claim, you can argue what you want in response to the prompt. So let's continue to use the preamble as our example. If the prompt says, evaluate the extent of change in ideas about American independence from 1763 to 1787, and one of the documents is the preamble, you might be arguing that ideas about American independence changed drastically from one of having some autonomy within the British government to one of total independence. Obviously, the preamble is evidence of the total independence side of your claim. So after summarizing it, you would say, the preamble shows that eventually the colonists gave up on trying to fix what was broken to just starting their own independent government, as they use words like, we the people of the United States. And when they talk about a more perfect union, that could be in reference to how imperfect things were under the British rule. Are you seeing the difference between summary and support? A good transition or way to show that you are going from summary to support is by using the words this means or this shows. See, going back to my sports analogy, you would say this shows that statistically speaking, the offense and the defense lead the league in 14 out of 16 weeks of the season, despite losing the games. The 1-2 punch. I'm right, you're wrong, ha ha. Not really. Any good argument is going to have another side to it. Yes, we call that a counterclaim, and that is a good way to get the complexity point, which, by the way, is my topic on episode 16. Oh, wow. You know, when I created my episode list, that seemed so far away, and now it's already the week after next. Before we continue with examples, it is time for Wendy Teaches History. The 14th Amendment. Fun fact about me. Yes, the history nerd. I actually know a lot about the Constitution. I even teach a class about it where we read the entire Constitution over 18 weeks. Interested? Okay, the link is in the show notes. Anyway, the fun fact is that my favorite amendment is the 14th. It has been in the news lately due to political happenings as we are entering a presidential election year. Many people think it is just the amendment that gave former slaves citizenship, but it has done so much more than that. It is the Due Process Amendment, and it states, "Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law." But that's just part of Section 1 of that amendment, which deals with rights. Before I tell you what the other sections are, let me reinforce that the Due Process Clause means that no person is above the law or below it. As far as the law is concerned, we are all equals, from the president to the homeless person. There are 4 other sections of the amendment. Section 2 addresses apportionment of representation and negates the 3/5 clause of Article 1 of the Constitution. Section 3 has received some attention of late due to the part that says, "No person shall hold any office, civil or military, under the United States who, having previously taken an oath to support the Constitution, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same." So whether you think an insurrection happened or not, some people are bringing forth evidence that a certain person who was the president engaged in an insurrection while he was still president. It will be decided in the courts. But it was written in the Constitution over 240 years ago. Section 4 says what the U.S. can do in debt and talks about when it is or isn't okay. And then the last section talks about how Congress has the power to enforce through legislation this amendment. And trust me, they've made lots of laws under this umbrella of enforcing the 14th Amendment. While I'm thinking of it, when you are writing about the documents, do not quote them. First of all, quoting doesn't show that you know what it means. Second, the graders, when they see quotes, they just skip over them. They don't read them. If you are really adamant about using quotes, then you better follow the quote with your interpretation of what that means. So why waste the time it takes to write an entire sentence from the document when you are going to have to put it in your own words anyway? Now, if you need to use 2 to 3 words from the document to show which part you're referencing, that's fine, but no more than that. Okay, now for some examples, straight from the students who took the exam and earned the 2 document points. For our examples, I won't go over the prompts and the thesis, although that would allow for a more thorough investigation. I am just going to read how the writers created both a summary and support with the documents in a couple of sentences. Please note that you really shouldn't start a sentence out with "document 1 says." Instead, attribute the document to its author or its title. You won't actually lose points if you do this, but it just sounds better and more mature and complex. Here is an AP Euro example. According to Sir Thomas Paton, in his dissolution, he claimed he would protect the purity of religion in England. That's the summary. In stating this, Charles clearly understood the religious motivations of the members of Parliament. However, this act was not a religious act. It was done in order to shift political power. Next up, a weaker but still acceptable example from AP US History. It starts out with what I told you not to do, but she still got the point. Yep, both points for document evidence. Document 7 is a map of property qualifications for white male suffrage throughout the early 19th century. The map shows that property qualifications were removed in every state by 1850 except for North Carolina. That is your summary of the document. You can make it quite obvious that you are using it for support by starting with these first two words. This meant that all white males in basically every state now had the right to vote. This helped develop a strong national identity, as many now felt like the country represented their views and that their voice truly mattered. And last, for AP World, Source 2 from British East India Company shows that India was reliant on Britain for finished goods. This graph shows that India was not able to industrialize under British rules and therefore acted as a raw goods exporter and market for British profit. India was reliant on Britain for finished goods. Want more? You want to see the whole thing? The prompt, the documents, the sample essays with commentary? Guess what? I have them. Send me a DM on whichever platform you follow me on, or contact me through my website. You could even call or text me. The number is on the website, aphistoryhelp.com. I'd be happy to send you a sample. Or better yet, let's get on Google Meet and look at one together. Next episode, we are going to get happy. You should know, I'm always happy. But we're going to break out the acronym HAPPY. You might remember that I covered acronyms way back on episode 7. Anyway, next week we're going to talk about how to get that analysis or sourcing point. With the new rubric, you only have to do it twice on the DBQ, and quite frankly, with a little practice, it will start to come easy. And when it comes easy, you might just do it 4 times. And when you do it 4 times, you might just get complexity. Oh, but now I'm getting ahead of myself because complexity is 2 episodes from now. Anyway, hit that follow or subscribe button wherever you are listening or watching so you'll be notified whenever it and any new episode airs. Do me a favor and message me on social media if you have any questions or suggestions, or just to tell me that you listened to or watched the podcast. I would be so grateful if you would follow me on Instagram and TikTok, or even subscribe on YouTube at AP History Help. I'll link to it in the show notes, or just search for me. As I already said, if you subscribe, you'll get notified every other week when a new episode is uploaded. Whether it's social media or YouTube, you'll be able to comment, ask questions, and interact with me there. Tell your friends who are taking or thinking about taking AP History classes about the podcast. I'm here to help as many students as possible to be successful in the course and on the exam. That will do it for this episode. Don't forget to come to Wendy for AP History Help. And this episode of the AP History Help podcast is now history.